Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Jamie Shepke, Certified Science of Happiness Trainer. And today's topic that I get to talk to you about for this last week is the optimism equation. And this is the concept of seeing the glass half full, or in other words, you're leaning more towards that optimistic side versus the pessimistic side. So let's dive in and I'll explain a little bit further. Okay, so first off, where does our happiness come from? So 50% of our happiness comes from our genetics alone. So that question of, are you a Tigger or an Eeyore? Well, we have this genetic disposition of our happiness disposition. And so you could lean more towards that Tigger side of always happy-go-lucky, or that Eeyore where maybe you're just seeing that glass half empty versus half full. And I'll dive into that a little bit further. But don't fret that if you feel like you're more on that Eeyore side, 40% of our happiness comes from our behavior or our thoughts. And that's a really encouraging statistic because you have control. Like, you can rewire your brain to look for the good, to find optimism in the more pessimistic situations, or you can learn from that, right? Like the concept of failure is feedback. It's not like this end all concept. And then 10% of your happiness is tied to our external circumstances. So just basically things out of your control. Okay, so good to know that right off the bat, that 40% we can control, we can rewire our brain. Now, I want you to be aware that we have this thing called our negativity bias, okay? And that's gonna work really hard against our behavior and our thoughts, because negativity bias means that it's our brain's survival mechanism, okay? It's our survival instinct that we favor negative information. And I want you to really think about it, like when people ask you the questions here, how was your day? You're like, well, let me tell you. It's because your brain favors negative information. So was it really a bad day, or was it 5 minutes of a bad day that you milked all day long? Okay. And so the optimism equation is going to help you combat your negativity bias. And also, if you have this lower happiness range, so that's another term that we use for how your happiness, with your genetics. Some of us have a higher happiness range and some of us have a lower. But again, the encouraging news is that you can move it within that range. So I wanted to make sure I covered that because it's common knowledge that we inherit our eye color and our hair and things from our parents, but you can inherit your happiness range as well. And so it's a good, it's an encouraging concept that we can change that behavior and those thoughts. Because if you're more of that Tigger, you probably see that glass is half full and you're like, oh, the light is just shining beautifully on it, right? But if you're more on that Eeyore side, you're like, that glass has been sitting out all night and now maybe that bacteria has been growing on it. You can maybe start to resonate with which side that you're on, but don't worry, we got you. There's a way that we can combat that if you're leaning towards that side. Okay, so now that we know that, what can we control, right? So we can't control our genetics, but what can we control? There's this awesome concept called cognitive behavioral therapy, and this actually comes from research. And it's to raise your awareness of when our negative mental patterns are at work, right? And a lot of times those negative mental thought patterns are subconscious, they're happening, we don't even realize it. So how can we consciously replace them with more positive ones? So 2 questions that you can always ask yourself when you feel like you're leaning more towards that pessimistic side is my brain auto-labeling this event correctly? And if so, is there a way I can relabel the event as something positive or less potent? So a couple of labels that I've acquired over the past couple of years is, if something comes up that you might label as this is potent, this is a crisis, I try to think of it oh, this is unexpected. Or I tend to use this one a lot, but plot twist, it's something that I couldn't plan for, it happened, now what? It's a plot twist. So I try to label it with more positive labels, or oh, I wonder what this is trying to teach me, instead of why is this happening to me? Just switch that narrative. So 2 other tools or concepts of cognitive behavioral therapy that can help you relabel things more positively is gratitude. Okay, so gratitude, we talked about that in our first week. You can utilize a gratitude journal. It can be a paper journal, it can be an app, You can use a gratitude partner, so somebody that you share your gratitude with. I also use like accountability in my gratitude practice. So like when I fill out my gratitude journal, I include other women or teammates that help keep me accountable to doing that daily. The other one is the optimism equation. So it's going to make more sense here, but ABC plus DDE equals optimism. You're like, we're doing math here, Jamie? Don't you worry. Each of those stand for certain things. Like A is activating event. So we'll get to that, okay? But I just want you to know that, again, you do have control over some things, and gratitude and the optimism equation is going to be your friends, all right? Let's go further into that. Okay, so let's break this down. The optimism equation. So the first part of the equation is the learn aspect, okay? So if you just only had learn in there, you're never going to reach optimism. So let me explain. So it helps you understand your inner dialogue, right? So again, that you're trying to take the subconscious part of your mental thought patterns and make them more conscious. So you understand your inner dialogue operates so that you can begin noticing when that pessimistic style is at play. Activating agent is number one. So any experience that triggers emotion and starts a negative train of thought. So it could be somebody making a rude comment, or it could even be, a sound. It can be a situation that you're in, and then that's going to activate your belief. So our beliefs interpret our experiences and trigger the emotions we feel. So if somebody makes a comment, then you might feel hurt, you might feel like betrayed, and then the consequence of that belief is that the emotions we feel are a consequence of the beliefs we relied on when labeling that event. Okay, so you're not feeling good there, right? Like another good example of this is like if you're a mom, like comparison, right? So an activating agent of, seeing your mom do something, and then your belief is, I could never be that mom, or I can't keep up with how does she do it all? And then that consequence, you feel like you're not a good mom, right? So how can you get to the other side of that? So we're going to need the DDE part of the equation, and that's putting it into practice. So this helps us practice new techniques for achieving optimism. Whether we are learning to swim or run a marathon, we cannot improve our skills without practice. There's this beautiful analogy in the science of happiness, which is a bicycle. You need to get on your bicycle and pedal and find balance on a bike, because that's what it is, a balance of, they're going to have some pessimism, right? But like we want to just lean a little bit more towards optimism, but not too far. And so D stands for distract. Knowing how to distract our brain can help us interrupt vicious cycles like ruminating and those negative thought patterns. Excuse me. So things like meditation, shifting your attention, writing your thoughts down. Okay. D, the second D, is dispute. So this plays an important role in confronting our critical inner dialogue. So again, that rumination, like we need to dispute it. Otherwise, we'll start to believe everything that we hear. Then E is effect. Notice the effect of changing a negative statement to a positive one. Take note of how your feelings shift when you dispute a pessimistic thought. You feel empowered, powerful, things like that. So now I just want to put this into practice with like an actual example. So put the equation in practice. ABC plus DDE equals optimism. So A, here's an example. I don't have time to work out, and therefore do not go to the gym consistently. That is your activating agent. You're like, I don't have time. Next, I was about to say the belief. Your belief is, I'm a failure for not prioritizing my health. How can other people do this and I can't? And then you just, again, start to feel that you are disappointing yourself and others, maybe. So on that C feeling, or that consequence of that belief that you just had, is, I feel tired all the time, I lack confidence, and I'm a poor role model. Like, let's say you have kids and you're like, I know I need to do better for them, but I'm just a poor role model, and I just, I'm a failure. I'm a chronic, this is a good one, I'm a chronic starter, and I don't always finish, right? So now we need the second part of that equation. How are we going to distract? So distract that thought, or distract that rumination with, I've been really stressed out about this, so I took time to start a gratitude journal to achieve a more positive mindset. Remember, I said distract can be writing your thoughts down. Write your thoughts down through gratitude, and then your brain's going to look for something positive. And then you're going to dispute that by saying, if I focus my energy on something positive, I can build a solution on how to schedule working out in my daily routine. When you have positive emotions, it's the broaden and build theory concept of like you are more creative, your thoughts expand versus when you're negative, thoughts narrow, and it's really hard to find a solution. And then again, the effect of those steps right there is I feel more confident that I've been able to make a commitment to better my health. I now have more energy, and I'm proud to be a role model in a healthy body and a healthy mind. Like how much better does that feel, right? So I really want your happiness homework, let's say, for this last week is to try to put this equation into practice. Like if there's specific triggers for you where it all always leads you down this ruminating negative thought pattern, I want you to first notice it, right? And really like try to break it down like, oh, this is my activating agent, this is my trigger. And then oh, I see like my belief is pretty strong here. Like you might have to work at this a couple of times. Like, when you have a habit, it's hard to break a habit, whether it's a mental habit or a physical one. And then again, use the second part of that equation, and that's going to lead you to that more optimistic mindset. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this concept. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I will see you next time.